You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and this is my conversation with Travis Clarke, who is the frontman for a band called We the Kings. The reason for the conversation was to promote the band's then upcoming tour of Australia, which occurred through January and February of 2018. Let's see what Travis has to say. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, Andrew? This is Travis.
Hey, mate. How you been travelling?
I have been fantastic. Just going through the day. It's nighttime here in Florida. So I understand It's the morning for you guys.
It is, mate. So it sounds
in the future.
Yeah, we're in the future. And mate, you're at home from the sounds of things because you are from Florida, aren't you?
I am from Florida. I'm at home right now, just sitting in the studio that I built in my house.
Oh, good on you, mate. All right. Well, look, I'll kick things off just in the interest of time, mate, and I'm sure I think I'm the last one. So, how have the Aussie, I call it the Aussie phonogrind. How's the Aussie phonogrind been treating you?
Really good, actually. It's I'm kind of like a talker, so I think people get in like 3 questions and then just like 8-minute answers or something like that. But it's good. They've all. I was just saying, like, if every question was the same, I would have wanted to do like a press conference or, sort of vibe, but it's cool. Every outlet has been a little different, in the way that they've asked things. So you guys have treated me very well.
Cool, mate. All right. Well, I'll try and keep it as fun, as interesting as I possibly can. But look, I've got to ask the one question that I'm sure everybody's asked you thus far, and that is that you are touring Australia in February. Can you tell us about the show that you're bringing to Australia?
Yes. So we essentially, when we were talking about the kind of schedule of touring that we were going to be doing in 2017 and 2018, we wanted to have a show that was different from everybody else. And just so happened to be that it is the 10-year anniversary of our very first album, the self-titled We the Kings album. And it was kind of like in the wake of bands doing that type of nostalgic niche style tour. So I was like, why don't we do that? Why don't we do a world tour from that 10-year album or from the album that we did 10 years ago and take it around the world and just kind of as our way to say, like, thank you to the fans that know about that album. Thank you to the fans that kind of started this band and made it everything that we've become so far, and it's interesting because this will be the first time that we've played some of these songs from the first album ever in our lives, from the beginning of this tour. So there are songs that we haven't played since we recorded them because at times, right when we first started the band, we released the album and we were opening, doing opening sets for the first couple of years. And we only had about, 30, sometimes 40 minutes to play at each show that we were opening for or direct supporting for. So if our album was 43 minutes, ideally there was a couple songs that we probably wouldn't be able to play if we played everything without saying a single word. So that's just naturally, we there were some songs that we didn't get to play and some songs that we weren't able to are some fans' favorite songs. So it'd be cool to actually play some of the songs that fans really connected with that we haven't been able to play as if they were singles. But also, we have been a band for 10 years and we've been continuing to release music pretty much every other year since that first album. So it'll also be a good chance for us to kind of keep everybody up to date with what we've been doing and with the new music that we have in store, but also the music that is not as old as the first album.
Yes, and mate, your relationship with Australian audiences over the years, tell us a little bit about that.
It's one of the places that I feel is the closest to the States, and I only mean that in a way, when we tour the States, I don't feel like I'm gone. I feel like I'm very at home. I don't feel like I'm far away from my actual house. And I know when we go to Australia, it's very reminiscent of that. think it's the people. I think it's the friendliness that we've come to know. I also think that us being from Florida, I grew up in a beach town. I live in a beach town now. And I think that vibe is very similar to most of the Aussies that we've been able to meet and hang out with, and others that have been fans of the music. I think that's why our music maybe connects better than some bands that have had a tough time in Australia. But I just feel like every time that we go, it's nobody gets bored of us coming, and it leaves us wanting to come back every single time. And I know that there's tours that we've done in the States where, we're excited to go back home versus, not come back. So I think that says so much about the people of Australia and New Zealand. There's everybody's so wonderful that every time we come to play, we always want to come back.
Yeah, I agree with the comment that you made. I do find that people from Florida and from California, when you talk about the relationship you have with Australia, it's almost been universal. Talking to Aaron from Under Oath as well, you probably know him. He spends, whenever he tours, he spends a lot of time over here surfing, and he was actually talking about one of my local beaches here, Burleigh Beach. So it's almost, there's this camaraderie and kinship born of the fact that we all live in a different part of the world, right? But it's very similar. The geography is very similar,
right,
for
exactly.
our lifestyles.
Yeah. And I live in California and Florida, so I literally see it both. And Aaron and I, we're both Rangas, so maybe it's just a redhead thing.
So let's talk about your 2007 self-titled album, because it is held in very high regard by many fans and even critics. And for mine, mate, you're actually ahead of the change curve on that album. So a lot of that sort of music that you released back then started to become popular about 5 or 6 years after the fact. But, mate, now 10 years on, how important is that album in the band's canon of work? Is it still the essential album from We the Kings?
Oh, absolutely. And I always say this when I talk to the rest of the guys about, because there's times that we'll put out an album and we'll be like, why isn't this connecting the way that we thought it would? And I think what it is, and this isn't fact, this is just my opinion on how the music industry works with having fans. And there's never going to be a time that you hear a band, let's just say We the Kings for now, there's never going to be a time after you've heard of We the Kings that will be new. So if you heard about us from that first album, from our debut album, it will be very, very difficult for us to release an album that to you or to whoever's listening is better than that album that you first, because you have an emotional connection with that music. And that, when you have no idea of what it would sound like or no preface of what it should be, and there's no expectation. When we put out our first album, there was no expectation that it should be, a chart topper, and no expectation that it should be, sell hundreds of thousands of copies or have singles on the radio from it. There was none of that expectation. So people were able to listen to that album free and clear in their head. And that will never, ever happen again for our band once you've heard of We the Kings. So I think this album will always be the most impactful record that we'll put out to so many people. Now as time goes on and hopefully we'll stay a band for the rest of our lives, and we can have the same conversation in 10 years and then in 20 years and 30 years. There's going to be a time where it shifts and the people that listen to our music are not really going to shows anymore, but there's this new wave of middle school and high school and college kids who are listening to music, and they might find out about We the Kings from the new stuff that we're putting out. And Check Yes Juliet and Skyway Avenue and Secret Valentine, those songs might be a foreign idea to those people. So I think until that happens, it will always be, our most, the record that I think we put most of our value in. And I don't know, I think that's, not only to the fans, but it's our first time that, we'll never we'll never feel that feeling again of walking into the studio for the very first time ever, and
awesome.
walking into a really nice studio of people that are there to work to create music for our band. So there's nothing like that very first feeling. There's, the saying of there's nothing like first love. There's nothing like the first kiss. Like, that's true beyond the romance. It's true for musicians as well. And I think that's why. And a lot of bands, unfortunately, they kind of forget that. They want to come out and tour and only play their new stuff or only play the stuff that they like. And to each their own. But I think when you have fans, you kind of hold the responsibility to play the music that kind of nurtured them into the genre of music that you're playing. So for us, it is absolutely 100% that record. And, we hope to have music that people can grow with and learn and learn to love. But we do know, and we're very conscious of the fact that there's no We the Kings album that will be quite like our first album.
I reckon that's such an important point you raise, because you do hear it, not all the time, but often enough, that bands seem to really want to promote their new material because they think it's essential, but I think they miss the point that fans hold the records that either first broke or were first released in the highest regard. Now, I'm not ratting on Iron Maiden here. I'm a big fan of Iron Maiden, but Bruce and some of the members of Iron Maiden have been very strong in coming out in the media and going, look, we're not a nostalgia act. We're going to be playing songs from our new album, or we're actually going on tour to support our new album. Now, look, that's fair enough, but with all due respect to Bruce and the members of Iron Maiden and the manager, Rod Smallwood, I think 98% of fans are there to hear the classics.
Right. Oh, because otherwise you can't call it classic rock. Otherwise, it's just rock. And it's actually funny that you said that, because that was our first tour in Australia, was Soundwave. And we would fly in to each city, and Flight 666 would be sitting on the tarmac. They were headliners of our year of Soundwave. And I got to talk with Bruce a little bit. I had no idea he was a pilot and all this stuff. And it was really cool talking with somebody who's done that. But what I will say is I think that it's important to the fans that if you are going to do that, if you are going to say like, hey, we're going to do this tour in support of a new album, I think it's really important to tell fans, like, at least they did that, first. At least they said, like, hey, we're going to be playing new music. That's fine. But it's when they say, like, hey, Iron Maiden's touring, so the 98% of their fan base is going to hear all the classic hits. And when they don't play all of them because they're, playing a lot of new stuff or what, then the fans, I feel like they feel kind of sold, and that's
shortchanged,
never,
I think, yeah.
So for us, it's, this we're calling it the 10-year anniversary tour because we're playing every single song off that album. But at the same time, we're going to play songs off our second album, our third album, our fourth album, our fifth album, and new songs that we're releasing next year. So everybody's going to get like a really nice mix. But if you're a core fan of We the Kings from that first album, you will hear every single song from that album. And that's always been really important to us, to never forget where we came from. And I don't mind being a nostalgia act. I am very, very aware that Check Yes Juliet was one of our biggest songs.
Yeah, that's your big one, yeah.
If not our biggest. And just because, we haven't put out a song that's been able to do what that at that time doesn't mean that, that we are the band Check Yes Juliet. We're still We the Kings. We still put out a ton of music that I absolutely love. We have platinum records from 6 of our other songs. And but it's what I was saying. It's that emotional thing. Like Check Yes was our first. That was our first girl that we have ever slept with. That's like the idea of that. That's like the first kiss, the first love, the first everything. So, you'd be kind of blind to not appreciate that and respect it to play forever.
Cool, mate. Look, I'll make this my final question. The band's lineup has been very consistent, and I think you've only had a change in bass player. So you've only really had the single change, and that's a change in bass player, but you've added a rhythm guitarist along the way. What do you put the stability down to? Are you all just really nice guys, or is it, to be honest, just luck?
There's definitely luck in everything that we've done, but I don't know if it's one thing that I can really pinpoint, because we've been on tour with a bunch of amazing bands that seem like really great friends and seem to be very financially successful and seem to have all the ingredients that it takes to be in a band forever. But I don't know what it is. I love the rest of the guys in the band. I have no ill will or no grudge or no resentment towards any single one of the band members. They know more about me than pretty much my family, and vice versa. And I think that we're all very open with each other. When we don't like something, we say it. When we like something, we say it. I do know we're lucky to be a band that's been around for 10 years. But we've worked really hard for that. We've worked, we don't really have much downtime. We're always writing music. We're always doing other things, and it's never, nobody's ever been chained to this band. We always say, like, hey, family first. When this band does whatever it does. So, hey, if you can't do this tour because your wife's having a baby or you're having some personal issues, like, go do that. We'll wait for you. We'll always respect the family first vibe. I think that's always been something that has kept us going longer. And we've never even had a moment where we've been like, oh man, we're not going to make it after this. Like, it's never ever gotten that bad. And so I think a part of that is, like you said, I think it is lucky. We're definitely lucky, but just the honesty of being true brothers to one another is definitely one of the main ingredients that we've had to the longevity that we've had.
Yeah, I really like the way you've explained that, because I do think being in a band is a camaraderie, and because you're all blokes, is a brotherhood, really, isn't it? And mate, I've got to pay you a compliment. You sound like as though you've got an extraordinarily level head, for a rock and roll musician. Most people that I speak to obviously do, mate, but it really sounds like you're grounded and you're in touch with the reasons for your success, and you're also very in touch with what your fans want.
I appreciate that. A lot of that's my wife. She and my kids. My two daughters. Like, I've learned more about what it means to be a man from being an adult and being a parent. When I'm on the road, I'm signing autographs and playing in front of thousands of people and changing guitar strings. And then when I come home, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to not to have shots with my friends. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to change a dirty diaper and things. So it's very humbling. And I've learned more about what it means to be a man, and how to be so grateful for everything that we have, grown to come, or to have. That it is, not telling everybody like, hey, go become a parent so that you can figure out how to be level-headed. But it's what the biggest change in my life is that, I definitely went through my egomaniac, moments where I probably thought I was better than everybody else, but that road ends very quickly, and it's very lonely at the end of that road. So, I'm grateful to have become the person. I really appreciate the compliment, because more than music, I'm still a human being, and I would want people to know that first and foremost. So,
well, I reckon you guys would be the ultimate band to support on a tour. So whoever the bands are that are supporting you in Australia, mate, I reckon just, if they're listening to this, because I do host a podcast episode and I'll publish this as a part of that, but if the bands that are supporting you, and any bands that get the opportunity to support you and play alongside of you, mate, if they can get an audience with you for 10 or 15 minutes and just get some of the stuff that you've got, some of the wisdom you've got, go for it, because you haven't just survived the industry, you've thrived in it.
Yeah, and we always offer that up too, because we were those kids that just looked at everything with bright open eyes and just wanted to be a sponge and learn from everybody, everybody's do's and don'ts and mistakes and successes. So if we can help out one person or one other artist or band member by sharing some of the knowledge that we've grown to learn, then I love that. I love the idea of being able to, because more than our band is a brotherhood, but being in music, like it's not always easy. And I think if if we can help somebody who's going through a hard time or a confusing time of what their band needs to be doing, then I think that's the brotherhood that we owe other artists and other bands, is to be able to sit them down and say like, hey, here's what worked for us. It might not work for you, but it's worth a try.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Look, on that note, I'll let you get back to what you're doing, mate. Thank you so much for the chat. It's been an awesome chat, really. It has been. All the very best on your Australian tour as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with Travis Clarke, the fella out the front of the band We the Kings. Thank you so much for listening.